There's a couple of old business topics to come up real quick on the agenda. We had a citizen's request for an analysis of the tax rate trends. We go back as far as '99 with the data that we have, and it shows the comparative analysis. We'll make copies of this available to anybody who might want them. We'll include it in the minutes for the meeting, and that'll be the method of distributing copies. Anybody who would like a copy of this can go on to the town's website and look for the Charter Commission minutes, and we can attach this. So Lara, I'll get this to you so it can become part of the minutes. Basically, it's this. If you look at the trend, you look at the tax rate going back to 1999, the average portion of the total tax bill for that period of time, which is it's actually 11 years, is 23.64, and the highest in that time frame was in 2002 when it was 25.14. The lowest was in 1999 when it was 19.49. The citizen who asked this also asked for the school rates. The school average portion of the tax bill is 54.05. The highest is 2009's percentage, and it was 59.91. And for the lowest, you have to go back to 2003 when it was 47.68. Now, there's a couple of other factors in here that talks about the school state tax rate, which I can't read the whole file because the computer is locked up apparently. But what it doesn't go into as well is the fact that there's no explanation of why it went up or down in any given year. Certain years it could have been new bonds for things like the high school expansion coming on. It could have been the town hall, police station coming on. It could have been other things going off. It could have been the shift in state aid that went from local property taxes to the state property taxes back to local. So there's a number, all kinds of variables. It was just a citizen's request for data. So there's no detailed explanation about why provided, and no detailed explanation was asked for. The other topic of conversation is, of course, proposed language for the charter. Before we get into that, I want to address a couple of topics that came up during email to me as the chair. One of the emails regarded the school district's legal opinion regarding their charter and the stated belief by the school district's attorney that a quorum was legal. That's the school district charter, and that's the school district attorney's opinion. In getting that information and an exchange of email with Dave and myself asking him to look at that, he gave me the feedback that the town's attorney and the school district attorney had a rather lengthy conversation and cordially agreed to disagree, and that there is a difference of opinion between the town's attorney and the school district's attorney. So with that said, the overriding guidance that I think that the Charter Commission has to follow, and each of us can decide what we're going to think about quorum issues on our own independently. But the overwhelming guidance is that when this report goes up to the Secretary of State's and Attorney General's office, it goes with the town attorney's legal opinion attached. So should the Charter Commission decide to introduce the element of a quorum into the language that we're writing, because the motion we made last week or at the last meeting was somewhat silent on this, it's still, in my mind, an open issue until we actually say yes or no. We want one or we don't want one. And that's a vote that we have to take. So until we've done that and closed it, it's still open. But when it goes, whatever it goes with, If it goes with the recommendation for a quorum, it'll have an attorney's opinion attached to it saying that the town attorney advises against the quorum as being unconstitutional. If it goes without, it would be in agreement with the town attorney's opinion. So that's sort of the guidance that we have. The school district's guidance from their attorney is not applicable to the town of Londonderry. That's the view that we have to take legally. So Chris, I see your hand up.
I mean, my understanding when the attorney was here was that it's well out of our scope to even address it. So I mean, I'm confused now. Why would we even be talking about it?
Well, we still are getting pinged from different people.
But I mean, we wouldn't even bring it up other than the fact that, you know, our school district has a quorum.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I think that they're, you know, a hybrid, or you know, however they deem themselves. But I mean, it's not something that we were ever instructed to look at. All we were instructed to look at was, you know, looking at town balloting, you know, official balloting.
Right. And I agree that that was in the guidance that we received, that that's the parameters, but I also know that there are commission members who favor a quorum. And in fact, I would have counted myself among them until the town's attorney came back with the opinion that it was unconstitutional. And then I went and read every single RSA that mentions quorum. All of them. There's 230 some of them. I could not find one that mentions it associated with specific voter rights issues. They all mention it specific to quorums on boards, Board of Land Appeals, Planning Board, councils, selectmen, all sorts of things. The New Hampshire Retirement Board. I mean, there are literally dozens and dozens of boards that have specific RSA guidelines governing them, and they mention what a quorum requirement is. And it's either a majority of the members of a specific board, or it's a set number, because it's not always a majority. Most times it seemed to be majority, or it said as stated, and it didn't say what you could state.
Well,
So
can we just like take an informal vote at this point and see how many people are even, you know?
well, that's why we're having this discussion, is to lead up.
Because I mean, I just kind of like to end the whole quorum thing, just because it takes up so much damn time.
Okay. Al?
Yeah, I had two things, exactly what you were going to say, but I also wanted to bring up here, of course, I don't care what the school does. I'm going to handle that with a letter and ask for clarification, legal opinion from the attorney on that there. That's down the road. That's nothing to do here. But the bottom line is what's going on here. Our Constitution, Article 11, basically states in there, not just elected offices, it also says all questions in Article 11. So I would like to, and with that said, I'd like to make a motion right now, exactly what you said, that we put this to bed, that we do not discuss any quorum or anything anymore, and it's over and done with.
Assuming the motion passes.
Assuming the motion passes, yes.
And that's exactly what I think is the appropriate thing to do at this step. So,
Second.
motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Marty, you have any?
No, I totally think that we can get totally bogged down here, and I don't think that was within our purview, our directions to what we're supposed to be establishing. The fact that some people think we do need it, I can appreciate that. Some people think we don't need it. I can appreciate that too, but they have a legal method of getting that entered if they want to do it, and it can be established. Whether it's constitutional or not, I'll argue the fact that we as a town, the school as an entity, have a right to set up their balloting the way they want to. Once it's submitted to the state and all the different agencies, and they have no problem with it, then it becomes a moot point. It's accepted. To change it, you'd have to go back in, like the school did, to put it out as a vote as to whether they wanted to reduce it or not, and it didn't get reduced. So we're going in it the opposite way. If we vote not to have one, that's fine. But it can always, somebody out there can always attempt to get it changed, which they have a right to do. So,
Just like they have the
I'd just like to get this taken care of too. I agree with you. I mean, it's a debate for another day.
Transversely, I think that, even, they could reverse our decision here, too. I mean, in an upcoming election. I mean,
True.
go back to town meeting,
Yep.
so.
Anyone else? So, I have to tell you, I'm in agreement with what I'm hearing, and I was known to be an advocate of having a quorum until the town's attorney came forward with, and then looking at it and researching it, and there was a press article on what Bud Fitch at the Attorney General's office had to say about it, which his response was also that he didn't see how it could be appropriate because it was restrictive. So there's a number of there's like some federal laws that might come into play. There's all kinds of things. Now, I know that we have a differing opinion from another attorney. I'm mindful of the fact that if we went out and got a third opinion, it might be completely different than the first two. And in reality, attorneys' opinions are good for us to listen to as guidance, but the truth of the matter is it's not been settled by a court. And it wouldn't be settled, and there was no, our attorney pointed the fact there was no relevant case that he could find, and he researched that, so there's no case challenging it. It just seemed to be unconstitutional. I went and tried to find information about the numbers of towns who might have a quorum and couldn't find specifically which ones did or didn't. I think I had seen that somewhere before, but couldn't find my way back to that point of information. So I'm fine with whatever the vote is here. If there's no other discussion, I'll call a quorum issue to a vote. Anything else? So, your motion was?
To drop the quorum, and we'll move on.
Okay, so all those in favor of dropping any further discussion on the quorum by this charter commission signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries 7-0.
We'll make a motion to reconsider.
To restrict reconsideration?
Restrict reconsideration, so we don't
So,
come back again.
that effectively takes the topic off the agenda for further discussion between now and getting to our final report. It will take a vote of the Charter Commission to open up the topic again, should anybody want to. Right.
Would that be proper to make that motion? So it don't
Now,
come back
there-
up at another meeting?
I'm mindful that there are two members of the commission who aren't here tonight, that if they would like an opportunity to speak to the issue again, I think in respect to them, give them an opportunity to speak to it.
Well,
Like, it's a 7 to,
right. The reason I'm saying here, because rather than beat it at another meeting, the opportunity was here to be here. And I would like to at least make this motion so we end it all once and for all
well, that
tonight.
was your motion, but if
I would like to make the motion to restrict reconsideration. And then if there's a second, if not, then we'll...
I'll second it because I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't
so a
think it's-
motion is made to restrict reconsideration, which effectively blocks it completely if you're coming back up. Any discussion on that?
Yes, I'm not going to vote for that only because there's an obvious vote right now to not do it. If our fellow counselor, the charter counselors, want to bring it back up because they have an opinion about it, I think we could listen to the opinion, but the vote would still be there to say no, I believe. And I don't know whether they will or they won't, but I don't know that they had expected, and I don't know what would have made any difference if they had known that this issue was going to be voted on tonight.
They did know.
So I'm going to vote against restricting it at this point.
I just think that the whole, I think that the whole idea is that, we just want to move on, and I think we're dealing with a
Absolutely.
limited amount of time at this point, and, we get bogged down with this quorum, it seems like every single meeting, and it's just, there's no use, there's no end to it, so, I mean, what's the use in arguing the point? I don't know.
Understand.
Or just even discussing it, because we
Any
can't
other-
even address it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to restrict reconsideration on the topic of a quorum signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion passes 5-2. Next item on the agenda is the Charter Commission Report Workshop with our special guest, Dave Karen. Dave has worked with the town's attorney to provide a markup, and as you can see, you actually have 2 copies of the section of the charter that would be subject to change should the voters approve. The first section shows the deletes and adds so that you can see specifically what's changing. This is actually, I believe, a required section for the report. We have to show what the Charter Commission is actually changing. And then the second section is that same piece with the changes accepted, and we have to show what the new charter language will look like. So this information from Dave provides that guidance on both items. Dave, I didn't know you were going to do this, I don't think we talked about it, but you provided a proposed budget calendar for FY12. This provides guidance on what the setbacks would look like for the different dates for the budget calendar, for the workshops, et cetera, et cetera. And then it gets to the point of where we would actually have a deliberative session, should the voters so approve. And that, looking for it, but
This would,
actually, Dave, this has a town meeting.
we're still have to have a
On
town
March
meeting
12th.
next year, right? And even if if it goes up for a vote, we still have to have a town meeting for
Yeah,
2011?
this is this coming year's schedule. Okay, so it does not have the revisions, I'm sorry, it doesn't have the revisions that would be
For
enacted
2012,
for the first,
or 2012.
Well, might be a little helpful if I could walk through it.
yeah,
for you
okay.
folks.
Cool.
Before he walks through, can I ask him a question?
Yeah.
Oh, because, okay. The reason I'm asking here is because I'm looking through just real quickly the first 2 pages. How come I don't see anything where on this where it goes towards like 40:13 or 40 different D, 40:D, or, you know, the article, the RSA laws that are specific to this ballot?
Which
Official
one are you
ballot.
referring to specifically?
Well, for instance, if I go back here, I haven't had a chance to look at my notes here, but 40 colon, if I remember right, D, and then there's a certain part of 40:13 that affects this here also, on efficient balloting, somewhere under, let me see here. Talks about, on 3, the first session of the annual meeting, which shall be, you have it in here, but like, if you look at the school charter, you'll see they reflect certain laws. This is the catch-all here. When we put the laws in place there, reference, it benefits all versus just the town saying it's this way here, when we should be able to reference RSAs pertaining to this here.
Well, if I can just go through this, might answer some of those questions.
Okay,
Okay.
let's do that.
Based upon the direction that the commission gave us, essentially what you're doing with some changes is you're flipping your schedule. Currently, under our town meeting form of government, our first session involves voting on bonds by ballot with finality and voting for all your elected officials. And your second session is having a discussion on some budget items, making amendments, and then voting on it with finality. Essentially, what you're doing is flipping those. Is that your first session now is you'll be discussing all your budget items, you'll be making amendments if you choose to, you'll be voting on those, but that's no longer the final vote. And your second session is now your final vote, which is still a final vote in the bond issues, on election of officers, but now you'll be taking a final vote on your budget and other special warrant articles. So with that guidance in mind, I worked on this language with Bart, and also we looked very closely at the official ballot law. There's only one reference in here, the official ballot law. Although if you take RSA 4013 and take this this charter side by side, you'll see a lot of language which mirrors the official ballot law. Had a discussion exactly about that issue with Bart this morning, and he cautioned against including a lot of statutory references in our charter because state law changes. In fact, if you look at the school charter, there's a reference to default budget, and the statutory reference has changed between the time the school approved it and right now. But if you look at it side by side, you'll see that the process and a lot of the language is exactly the same. If you look at section 5.3, it's just been amended to recognize that there's an official ballot session of the budgetary town meeting. It's held on the second Tuesday of March, which is currently takes place. And it also stipulates that you have to give notice of public hearings like we currently do, the deliberative session of the budgetary town meeting, and the official ballot session of the budgetary town meeting. So recognized in section 5.3, you'll have two parts to your budgetary town meeting. Section 5.4, final date for budget adoption, just recognizes, again, there's two sessions, not too many changes there. Section 5.4B deals with now your first session, deliberative session. And this language mirrors the official ballot law, RSA 4013, in that if you're going to continue to have a March town meeting, which I believe is the commission's intent, then your deliberative session must be held between the first and second Saturdays following the last Monday in January, inclusive of those Saturdays. It is our recommendation you do not establish a specific date, because as Brian and Marty knows, you guys have worked hard when you sat on the council attempting to increase attendance at town meeting. And frankly, nobody knows what's going to work. Would the citizens prefer to have a deliberative session on a Saturday morning? Or do a lot of folks would be able to rush back from out of town to go to a night meeting? You just don't know. So our recommendation is that you do not designate a specific day. However, use the parameters established under the state law. So once the council can take a look at that and try to make a decision, which hopefully will be most convenient for most of our citizens. There's language in B to restrict reconsideration, which is also in RSA 4013. The language which follows also mirrors 4013 regarding warrant articles, which will show up on the warrant. Warrant articles may be amended at the first session, subject to the following limitations. And also, all votes of the Town Council and Advisory Budget Committee shall be recorded votes, and the numerical tally of any such vote shall be printed in a town warrant next to the affected warrant article. That's also straight from the official budget law. Article C, if approved by the voters, the clerk will still prepare an official ballot. However, the official ballot will not only include election of officers and bonds and notes, but also all budget articles. So it'll be an expanded ballot, similar to the process used by our school district. Top of page 2 begins to address the second session, which is where the voting takes place. Be voting on all election of officers, all bonds and notes, and all warrant articles from the first session on an official ballot. And again, it just restates it should be held on the second Tuesday in March, as it currently is. Bonds and notes shall require a 3/5 majority for passage. The citizens voted on that charter amendment, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago, and that remains. And then there's language in there regarding the operating budget. In addition to acting upon special warrant articles, voters shall choose between the proposed operating budget as may be amended during the deliberative session, which is the first session, and the default budget, which shall be calculated pursuant to RSA 4013, Roman 9, small b. In the event that the proposed operating budget and default budget receive an equal number of votes, the default budget shall be considered approved. And that's pretty standard language, same thing what the school has. Subsection E has been removed because that's been merged with the language in D. Your new E just deals with regarding to the second session as far as absentee voting, polling place, and polling hours. Old G, new F has not changed. Old H, new G, again recognizes that bonds and notes will be voted on in the second session as opposed to currently it's the first session. And new H, old I has not changed. So essentially, you're flipping your sessions, except the discussion, which happened at the budgetary town meeting, now happens in the deliberative session. However, any amendments or votes are not final. They all push forward to the final vote by ballot on the second Tuesday in March. Now, the next 2 pages, presuming this language meets acceptance by the commission and is approved by the voters, this essentially is what your charter will look like. It's just with all the add and deletes removed from it. That's just for your information. The third piece of information is the budget calendar. Every year we develop and distribute a budget calendar to review and make recommendations on the town budget. Last year was the first year we went to a more abbreviated schedule. Previously, we started budget deliberations in October, which means the budget information to the finance director was probably due at the end of August. The consensus was that we're just spending a lot of time on the budget and we could really condense the schedule. Now, the end result is that if the town votes to adopt the official ballot, you've got to move the process ahead a month. Because essentially, everything right now, all your budget information is going to be ready for the second Tuesday in March. However, now it's going to be ready the first week in February. That's when your deliberative session is. So the best way to do one of these budget calendars is work backwards. And if you go to the last page in your handout, it shows that if there was the commission recommendations in place for this particular year, there would no longer be a town meeting on March 12th. That's the column on the left-hand side. The bold italicized denotes what happens under an official ballot charter. All voting will occur on the second Tuesday in March. We're still required by the charter to publish notice in the newspaper about the meetings. That would happen about the same day, in February 28th. And the next line above that, which is the third group of information from the top, shows where it's not applicable currently, deliberative session, it would need to be held between January 29th and February 5th. So the goal line as far as presenting information to the voters is no longer the second Tuesday in March. It's now pretty much the end of January, the beginning of February, so you're moving the process up about 30 days. And so the rest of the calendar flows. Several of these deadlines are actually established in RSA 4013, although they don't say it. There's a deadline for a public hearing. Last day to post the warrant, which is the top of the last page of January 25th. That's set forth. It's not actually that date, but it's like the last Monday of the month, so it follows through. So you can see actually is that we do have the opportunity to maintain the same budget count, same start time for the budget. My guess is, what I think is a smart move, is the council will probably push it back a month, because you can see we can do it, but it's awful condensed. So my sense is that they'll start the budget deliberations sometimes in October as opposed to November, knowing that the deadline has been pushed up a month. But again, that just gives you an idea of what needs to happen. I mean, the only disadvantage to that is that, by the time you adopt the budget, you're a month further away from the beginning of your fiscal year. So you're trying to make predictions that are between 6 and 18 months away from that budget year, but that's, a month is not going to kill us. Usually we have, the two biggest factors we have realistically are health insurance costs and retirement costs. And both those folks, local government center for our assurances and retirement system for retirement rates, are pretty sensitive to our dates with respect to formulating budgets, so they get the information to us sooner than would be required into this process. So it wouldn't, as far as operationally, it wouldn't impact us significantly.
So Dave, it would be the same restrictions placed on the school district now in terms of the budget calendar, where
That's
they
correct.
have to get theirs established basically a month before the town does,
That's correct.
so that they can meet their deliberative session requirements.
Right.
So for 2/3 of the budget, it's already under that restriction. The remaining one-third of the budget would move under that should the voters approve.
That's correct.
Now, the only, like, the one question that I had specifically was regarding the language of 5.4B, between the first and second Saturdays. Now, when I sent you a note, I'd specified basically a couple of days during the week rather than a Friday, because I've gotten a lot of feedback that Friday deliberative session is restrictive. But I'm guessing what you're saying is that this is the specific language. Should there be language, this is the specific language specified by the RSAs we're invoking here. Should there be language in here that places the role of the council in here as to establishing, on a date established by the town council? Should there be something in here that says that? Because right now, all it says is held between the first and second Saturdays.
I guess what we need to look up is go back up to section 5.3. And it talks about public hearings, and the last part of the first sentence, which is actually 2, 4, 5 lines down, as the council shall direct. So we can include language to make that clear. It's the council's responsibility to establish the date. You know, that we certainly can clarify that. That's pretty much a given, and presume that the governing body is responsible for that. And it might be, and that responsibility might actually be in a separate statute, which I overlooked.
Okay.
But we can make that clear. That's not going to be an issue at all.
And it could be any day. It could be Saturday, it could be any night, or Saturday.
That's Saturday to
whatever they wanna do,
Saturday.
as long as it meets those dates.
That entire 8-day period, absolutely. Right.
I would think if you're looking for maximizing public participation, you should kind of look at the day, because the night of the week that a lot of people I know are least likely to show up is a Friday night.
Right. No, I was thinking like Wednesday, I don't know, another night maybe.
Yeah.
I know.
Just a different night other than
But
Friday.
what we're really saying here is that that's up to the council.
Right.
Right, and, you know, it's difficult because, you know, Saturdays, folks don't have to travel out of town to go to work, but then they lose their Saturday. But if you have it during the week at night, you don't lose your Saturday, but some folks have a tough time getting back to
Right.
Boston, so it's,
Some people are working a night shift, and some,
Right. I mean,
you
it's-
can't make everybody happy.
exactly.
So Pauline, I saw your hand up. Take a question.
Yes, I do have a question. I read, Pauline Karen, 369 Mammoth Road. I read last week that the Secretary of State stated that absentee ballots had to be out 45 days before elections. This is going to mess up your calendar.
If I can touch on that.
Go ahead.
We've just recently passed law and was signed there, and the Secretary of State is trying to work that issue because there is federal law that was voted on also. Even though he said 45 days, it could even be more. So I'm sure, even if we have this date, that's why I asked about the RSAs, because even though the RSAs changed, the 49:D:3 still stays in place, and then the applicable changes are there, just like the 40:13. So that's why it was important for me to have those there, because when the changes are finally made on the absentee, they will reflect in the laws there that we referenced, you know, within our charter. Because if it's not referenced, and if you go into 49:D:3, there's stuff in there that pertains to official ballot. You know, and of course, they took out the 2/3, which we don't have to worry, and put the 3/5 I see in here. But there's other issues there that go into it. But I don't see us touching on these other laws. And in the back of the page 2, it goes into all laws on certain things. But this leaves us like we did before, where we couldn't find answers because they weren't in the charter. We didn't have to comply with the law if it was there. I mean, I'm just saying we should be looking at the laws in all areas of this budget and other areas in accordance with the RSAs in New Hampshire, like other towns have, and like our school did.
So, David, looking at 5.4A, that seems to be a catch-all clause. Says the warrant for annual meeting shall prescribe the place, day, and hour of the deliberative and official ballot sessions of the budgetary town meeting,
That covers.
and notice shall be given in accordance with state law. So if there are changes, including interpretation and the secretary, the recently adopted law, then you would have to, that's the catch-all paragraph that would override and provide the proper setbacks to give
Right.
you 45 days.
See,
That would be imposed on the school district as well, so their deliberative session could conceivably move back to where, the absentee ballots go out 45 days in advance, is that what you said?
That's what's probably
So,
gonna happen.
so if that was gonna happen, we'd have to have a deliberative session vote and then time to print the ballots, the absentee ballots, and mail them. So, no matter what, there's a change
well,
coming.
obviously, that's a conflict in current state law, because if you
Yeah.
do happen to look at RSA 4013, there are 3 options for town meetings. You can have one in March, which we currently do. You can have one in April, or you can have one in May. And what RSA 4013 does, it lists out for each one, if you have it in March, here are the dates for your final public hearing for your deliberative session.
Yeah,
So, and if you have it in April, then it shows it as well. So all those are slotted in. And so if there's a conflict now with the absentee ballots, again, that's something that the state legislature's gonna have to correct. But what we do is that absentee ballots is not a local law, it's a state law. So
Federal.
what we do is we give the town clerk the dates in the charter, and then she has to work with those to make sure she's in compliance with state law regarding absentee ballots and postings, all the other legal requirements she needs to accomplish.
okay, so once that's done, that could change the whole schedule yet again,
Well, if you notice on the budget schedule, there's nothing about absentee ballots
right,
in here at all, and there hasn't been currently,
right.
because that just, that's a state law, it's controlled by state law. I just give the town clerk, town meeting is on March 8th this year. And then she would work back through.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is that usually, at least I haven't studied the official ballot dates, but usually with respect to having your public hearing before town meeting, usually there's enough time in there whereby the warrant is set, and then she'll have the warrant to send out. Because I know she bugs me every other day in that time of year to make sure she can get it done, get it to the printer, and get the absentee ballots out.
So, under the current configuration of having a Tuesday vote and then a Saturday town meeting, the issues that would be on the absentee ballot, such as the election of officers, the bond issues, those that are specific to the Tuesday vote, that's the reason why we have the budget calendar set up the way it is with the final hearings, is so that these are properly noticed and can appear on a absentee ballot, more so than some of the other calendar issues.
Yeah, what we do currently is that state law says that petition warrant articles, and 25 citizens can submit a petition to spend money in town on a legal appropriation, and it's got to be submitted 5 Tuesdays before town meeting. And so we always have our final public hearing currently that 2 days later, on Thursday. So therefore, we know that on that Thursday, we have all the budget information, including any citizen petitions for public hearing, the council votes, and then off to the printers we go. And so that, even looking at that, that still may create some issues for the 45-day period that Pauline was speaking of. So, but again, the legislature has usually been good, or actually staff's been good at identifying those issues at the State House, and the legislature's been good at adjusting those. So I'm sure we'll have some adjustments.
So separate from this, and separate from the Charter Commission's duties, if we vote to have our Tuesday vote in March, then the calendar and the determining factors of the calendar, that's all beyond the Charter Commission's control,
That's all in state law, that's correct.
right? So the option that is under the Charter Commission's purview would be to recommend a change to another month.
Right.
I'm not saying that
Right.
we could do, we want to do that, but that is the actual option that the Charter Commission has in any of this, is to pick the month.
Right.
Everything else is state law, council, budget calendar, it's all somebody else's.
Yeah, once the month of the town meeting's been voted on by the voters, then all the other dates flow back from that as established by state law. The public hearings, petition, warrant articles, everything just flows back from that date.
Okay. Al?
Yeah, question, thank you, Brad. Like, for instance, non-budgetary items under SB 2, and the reason why I'm bringing this up here, Because the average Joe Schmuck could tell you, if you look at our our charter, they have no clue. They automatically think this is the law of the land. There's no, I looked at our charter and there's no references, there's no nothing. So somebody that lives out in town won't have a clue on any of this stuff. And I hate to keep beating this because I think the lawyers got a little confused on that. Because when I look at the 49D3, it goes into so many laws that pertain to the, like, for instance, including all requirements pertaining absentee voting, polling places, polling hours that are part of the SB2, excuse me, let me rephrase, official balloting that we voted on. And I don't see us where anyone that reading our charter would even have a clue where to go or what to look. They just got to take this as gospel, the charter. So the citizens have no say, really. But if they were able to go read the law, I'm fortunate to understand the laws and where to go. But 99% of them probably don't have a clue in our town. That's why some of the stuff that we have here is carte blanche to small little areas when, if we can reference the laws, to go look at the whole thing.
Actually, this is the gospel for the town of Londonderry,
Right, but you also, the town of Londonderry is supposed to comply with the RSAs too that are out there.
which was adopted by the voters almost 15 years ago,
Yes, but
right?
now we have an opportunity to give the voters, educate them better, so they can pull the charter and look themselves and say, this is the law. Well, I can go do a Google search like I did. I got 3, 4 different bills right in front of me pertaining to official balloting.
Yeah, I don't have
Our
the,
charter only sticks with a certain area of the law.
I don't have that statute in front of me, I don't think I do. But if you look through it close enough, you'll notice that in constructing our form of government, there's an option called the budgetary town meeting.
Right.
And that's what we have. And what it says is that any other items customarily handled by town meeting as legislative body is now assigned to the town council. So for non-budgetary items, the town council, per our charters adopted by the voters almost 15 years ago, the town council is legislative body for non-budgetary items.
That's under the 25, the petition. See, I'm not even going into the petition. I'm just trying to carte blanche anything that's not budgetary.
I'm simply referring to the budget.
Okay.
The budget, we're a budgetary town meeting. Everything else, the council is the legislative body. Now, if you want to talk about non-budgetary petitions, which we have received some in the past, if we receive, essentially, the town council is the town meeting for non-budgetary issues. So if they receive a petition of at least 25 signatures from registered voters of a petition, they have to act on that petition. And they either vote it up or down. Because town meeting receives a petition, they'll either approve it or they'll defeat it.
Right.
So the council plays that role, then that process is done.
Then with these changes, and may I follow up?
Sure.
With these changes that we're gonna make under official ballot, there are so many laws, then the only ones that are gonna understand are just us sitting here, maybe the council or you, that know where the laws are pertaining to this here. Anyone that picks up our charter, like the school board charter made life easy. There's two, I can go right to the school, RSAs that it says they pertain to those, and I can go right to 40-D:3, and then go to 11A, and it breaks it down into what to understand on the charter. And the legislative is the one that gave them the authority to do that. But we're blinded, we're quiet on this here in the town side. I don't understand why we're not educating and keeping our citizens, because this is the government of the people, informed on this stuff here. That's why I think we got to ask this lawyer why he's not references in the laws, because the legislature gave the town the authority to do the charter.
Well, I'd be more than happy to have the attorney send you a letter, which he told me today, which is he would strongly suggest you stay away from statutory references because the statutory references do change. Now, further is that if this is approved by the citizens, you still have a budgetary town meeting.
Right,
Let's not be confused about that,
yes.
okay? You're voting by official ballot, but you still, your main framework is you have a budgetary town meeting. Okay, that's the main framework. What you're asking the voters to consider is changing how they adopt that budget.
Right.
You're not changing the form of government. Budgetary town meeting is a form of government. You're not changing your form of government, you're simply changing the process by which you adopt your annual budget.
But
That's all you're doing.
Aren't we adopting stuff under SB, under 40:13, that are part of the SB2, the default, the deliberative session, there's a couple other areas?
Yeah, what we're simply doing is remember what the town attorney told you, okay? And that's why it's a simple majority to adopt the charter commission recommendations and not 60% vote, is that you're not asking the voters to adopt the official ballot law, RSA 4013. You're asking the voters to adopt an amendment to your charter. Although it may look fairly similar to 4013, you're not asking them to adopt the official ballot law under 4013.
So we played a game of words, is that what we did on the ballot?
I'm not
That's what
playing
it
games
seems
at
like.
all, Al. I'm just trying to explain to you.
No, I know that,
the
but I'm just
process.
confused right now on
No, I'm-
official ballot.
So to kind of get to that a little bit, there's, after the last meeting, we'd asked Bart a question related to specifically what we were doing here and what the vote would be, what the required vote would be to adopt this on the part of the voters. So I apologize for not getting a copy of this out to everybody, but I will. This letter is in response, and I'll read it. So this letter is in response to your request to provide the Charter Commission with guidance relative to the vote necessary to adopt any charter amendments proposed by the commission. And that's a key word here. Before proceeding to that question, allow me to express my appreciation to the commissioners for the opportunity to meet with them. The public session was informative and indicated that there were a number of individuals who were very involved with town government and were willing to share their thoughts with the commission. So Pauline, he's actually complimenting you. The Charter Commission was established pursuant to RSA 49B:3, Section 6, for the purpose of studying the issue of establishing official ballot voting in the town and recommending any changes that are perceived in the town's interest. As these are amendments to the charter, adoption is governed by 49B:6, Section 4, that provides if a majority of the ballots cast on any question favor acceptance, the charter amendment becomes effective. This basically answers the question that says 51% of the voters make this decision to change, not 2/3 or 3/5 or any other notion that anybody had. Because there was a question, is it 60% or is it 51? And the belief of several was that it was 51. The attorney was going to go back and research it. This letter is his research. And he goes on to say that perhaps the confusion arises because RSA 40:14, governing the method of adopting the official ballot referendum form of town meeting, requires a 3/5 majority vote. You need to understand that town meeting is not adopting RSA 40:13, but rather charter amendments proposed by the commission. That explains the difference. So, for my part, I look at this and think that the language that's here is fairly clear, although it's not full of a bunch of RSA references tying it to specific things, because those specific things can be found in multiple references. And to include which specific ones we are referring to, I don't know that that would help the majority of voters to any greater understanding.
Can I ask a quick question? You know?
But if it's something that the majority of the commission thinks we should have, is specific ties along, I'm talking about taking section 5.3, and if there are specific RSA references that apply to that paragraph, 5.4, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H, if there are specific references that tie to those paragraphs, adding those references. If that's the commission's wish, then that's what we'll do.
If I may, where he made a comment and the lawyer said, well, if the law changes. So now, if we don't have that in the charter and the law changes, it's in our charter. We don't have to, we're going to go to like the quorum again, where you got to challenge it. So if 49-D:3 changes, well, then the town has to comply with it. Am I right? If it's not on the charter, the laws that we're complying with are all laws, and I'll use either, you know, that there, or 40:13 official balloting procedure, if somebody adds, we don't have to go by that if it's not referenced that law in the charter.
That's correct.
You know, so this is where the lawyer is right, because just like the schools say, well, the quorum's there, well, we don't have to comply with it, it's in our charter. Well, we leave it open here that we don't have to comply with any changes, and now we gotta go through a whole nother year, vote in a new charter to comply with the law. Where if we reference the laws, the RSAs, then we cover the people of, the residents of Londonderry, not the government.
Actually, it's the other way around. It's the other way around.
How's that?
If we make recommendations to follow the process under the, it's not the right one, under the official ballot law, the process in your charter, if they change the statutory reference in state law, then your charter's out of date, so you've got to go through a process to correct your charter.
But didn't you pick and choose under 40:13? You didn't write the whole, everything in there, you only pick and choose certain things like the 2/3 or the, other things that are in there, not the whole 40:13.
Well, which provisions of 4013 did we omit?
So, to look at that as an example, and I'm not gonna cite a specific reference because I don't have it here in front of me, but if 40:13 says 2/3, and somewhere along the line, the legislature changes it to 3/5, the charter says 2/3, we don't have to change just because 4013 changed to 3/5. So by tying it to references, we're tying to always amending the charter. The situation exists, Dave, you were referencing the school district charter, which cites a specific references that is now no longer valid, which could be invalidating their charter, or at least that piece, because their reference is no longer a valid reference.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to invalidate, but certainly just confused. As an example, in the school district charter, they have default budget means the budget figure arrived at by following the calculations contained in RSA 4013 Roman 10, when the default budget definition is now 4013 Roman 9 small b. I mean, it's not the school district's fault at all. It's just, you know, the more statutory reference you put into your local ordinances, the more opportunity is for the state to change those, legislature to change those, and it'll be out of date.
Okay, I have to disagree with my friend Brian on something. If the law changes and you have the reference in the charter, no, you don't have to change the charter because the law, because you referenced that law already. So you don't have to bring in a whole new charter commission to change it to comply with the law. It's already there with RSA 49:3 or D3, whatever it is. It's already there.
So,
now, we will have to change to comply with the law if we leave it mute, you know, and we don't put it in there, then yeah, to comply with the law, we say no because it's not in the charter.
So if I go to the specific reference cited by the school district charter as the location of where I can find the default budget calculation, and it now says something along the lines of, school district superintendent's role in the budget, I now have a reference that when I go follow it,
Right.
doesn't mean anything anymore.
Then you know it will stay right in there, this has been deleted. So now nobody has to go back into
Deleted
the
or
charter.
amended
Or
because
amended
they
or whatever.
renumbered certain things.
Right, but it covers you, nobody has to go back to the charter. I hate to keep dragging this out, but I just think here by not putting this in, we keep the power within the government instead of the people, that they can look at our charter and understand and read and know where to go to get the answers. Right now, we're mute on any of this stuff, we're silent.
Either one, I mean, you know, amending the charter to put the statutory reference is not a fatal issue at all. But, Al, you know, frankly, I mean, you are way off base by saying that if the statutory reference is not there, then the power goes to the government and from the people. The words are the same, either way.
The charter is the last word.
The charter's your gospel.
That's
And-
right.
And unless it's in violation of state law, that's your gospel. That's the town's constitution,
That's what
which
that's what
was
the
adopted by
voters-
the voters of the community.
And
So
changed.
whether it says RSA 4013 or not, it doesn't change the meaning of the town's constitution. It just doesn't. So,
Okay.
So it's a worthwhile discussion to have, Al. I guess the thing is that I would leave it up to a vote of the commission.
Yeah.
Or a consensus decision. We don't have to have a motion, but if everybody wants to look at having the statutory references in here, then that's a consensus decision on the part of the commission. Al, I understand why you're in favor of it. It does provide some degree of reference to the average voter. And I'm certainly understanding that. I also see that the other side of the problem is that those references could be wrong, those references could be changed, and the charter itself specifies what's what.
Right.
It's pretty straightforward.
It could go either way, but the law is the law, and we have to comply with the law, but the charter
Yeah.
blocks us from complying.
Well, there's also specific references throughout the charter that
Unless,
things shall be given, notice shall be given in accordance with state law. Different, and different types of things are specifically tied to state laws. So, votes taken on official ballots shall be subject to be recounted as set forth in state law. Voters at the second session shall follow procedures set forth in state law, right? Without specifically saying what the state law is regarding absentee ballot voting, polling places and polling hours, without specific references, it says in accordance with state law. So as state law changes, it's accommodated by those particular types of statements without having specific reference to. And if someone were ever to question and say, well, what's state law say about it? They can ask the question and they'll get an answer. Well, state law currently says X, Y, Z.
Right. Well, you see how many times I gotta post laws out for people to read, because there is a lot of questions concerning things, and one person's telling them one thing, and it's totally opposite what the actual RSA is.
And that's part of the issue too, is
Right.
that, having sat up here answering those kind of questions for a few years, I always found it best not to give my answer, even if I thought I knew the exact answer.
Right.
It was best to give the town attorney's answer or the town manager's answer as the subject matter expert, the duty expert, rather than leave it open to interpretation of counselors who didn't agree or didn't want to agree, or budget committee members who didn't agree with the council, et cetera, et cetera. So I leave this up to consensus. If anybody else, like a quick show of hands, if you want references, raise your hand.
I don't know, I think that's just kind of out of our realm of expertise at this point. I mean, I don't know, I'd have to defer to the town lawyer to say, if his opinion is to keep it out of there. I mean, we should probably just do that.
I think that doing the references brings more question and interpretation than not. I think we're pretty straightforward. If there's an issue, you ask the question, we answer the question, or whoever's in the authority of that time, the council, town manager, whoever. Well, why are you doing this? Well, per state law, we have to do it that way. Well, it doesn't say that in the charter. So, yeah, it does, according to, as long as it's in compliance with state law, all right? Because that state law changes all the time.
But Al, you're just looking to reference certain sections
Certain sections that are
as you
compliant
go,
with the
as kind of
deliberative
bookmarks
session,
as you go along.
with the budgetary process, with the open ballot procedures, open, or what we call it, the official ballot, rather. There are laws pertaining to that. And right now, we picked and choose. If there is a change in the law, we don't have to comply with it because it's not in our charter. Like, as he said, the charter is gospel. We have to somehow come together with another charter commission a whole year, okay, and hope for the best. So if we somehow can put in there that, maybe even on all issues pertaining, that the RSA's, something, a carte blanche answer on it. Because right now, we just got 4 areas concerning the voting.
So it's
on
not,
page 2.
it's not a whole year of waiting for the voters to approve another charter commission, because minor amendments like that are under the purview of the council to introduce on any given year.
Where is that? Where it's, the council has the authority to go make minor changes besides a,
Technical changes.
dotted I,
Always have
cross a T, word changes.
Correct.
Yeah.
But they don't have technical, they don't have the authority to make changes like that to the new laws.
Substantive.
Textual.
Yeah.
Textual, like a word spelled wrong, a dot, an I, across a T, stuff like that. That's it. Am I correct?
That's
So-
correct.
So under the RSA's, in the last several years, the council has proposed charter amendments. The first one that I recall while sitting I guess it was the year I was either elected or the year following, the charter amendment was to change from 3/5 to, 2/3 to 3/5 voting.
That was a technical error, I would think, because of the
It
RSA.
wasn't an error.
If you look at 40D13, it discusses, it breaks it down.
It wasn't an error at the time.
Oh, okay,
It
I
was
got
an
you.
option at
I
the
stand
time.
corrected, okay.
At the time, you had the option of allowing either 66% of the vote or 60 on bonds, and at the time, it was changed. The bar was 66, the bar was lowered to 60.
Oh, they
In
changed it.
fact, on that particular issue, there was a question whether the town could do that, because it wasn't an official ballot voting,
So that was
but it was
based
the
on.
bonds.
Can you email me a reference that says that the town had the authority over the voters to make those changes?
Well, the town didn't have the
the
authority,
ta-
the council
Al, the voters
as an
approved it.
amendment.
The voters approved the change.
Oh, so, yeah, the
Yeah.
vote,
The
the voters.
council didn't walk in and change anything. They
Right.
proposed an
What
amendment.
I'm getting at here, because I'm being told the council has the authority to make technical changes. Yeah, they do.
Textual
Cross the I,
changes.
dot the I's, cross
With-
the T's.
And every one of those goes back in front of the voters.
Okay, that's what I didn't get. I didn't hear that.
So a couple of years after that, the next amendment that was made dealt with capital planning.
That's right.
And the charter had a very specific format for the capital planning commission.
Oh, I
that
understand
After trying that format for a couple of years,
Dave,
the
I
council
apologize,
decided we
because I
needed to
thought he
tweak
was
it.
saying that the council has the authority to make
no,
the
no, no,
changes
no.
without any voting going on. I
Every one of them
apologize. I misunderstood on that one.
No
So if
reason-
you look,
There's no
the,
reason to
uh,
apologize, just to ensure everybody's clear, is that the only body that can change the charter are the voters of the community.
Right.
It's the only body that can change the charter.
So if you look at the charter itself as it stands now, it was adopted on March 12th, 1996. It was effective on July 1st, 1996. It was revised by town meeting vote on April 14th, 98, March 14th of 2000, March 11th of 2003, March 9th of 2004, and March 8th of 2005. And every one of those revisions was made by an amendment proposed by the council and approved by the voters.
Okay, thank you.
So that's what I'm talking about now. So if the way this language is worded now required a specific amendment to match a changing state law, the council would have the ability to do that. To introduce it as an amendment, the voters would have to approve the amendment.
Okay.
That's kind of, I look at that as the voters having the safeguard against the council arbitrarily or unilaterally trying to change
Right.
something. And that's what I think you're looking for, is how do you keep that from happening? You wanna, you believe that it could happen by tying it to specific references.
And how do we educate the people that break out a charter and can know where to go to get the information? We'll be educating our town, make them smarter voters on what town government. Give them mine. I get many calls now. I don't mind helping somebody out for the law.
So, given that, in the show of hands, I saw,
Just one more thing out for just clarification. We could, citizens can also petition the council to change the charter.
yes,
Yeah. So voters can petition.
yes.
The council will put something on the ballot, or they'll okay that, and then it goes on the ballot.
Well, they'll okay it or ignore it, but
Yeah.
as the case may be. That's not a criticism of any particular thing, it's just.
No, but it can be ignored by the council too.
Get 5% of the voters, you.
And you gotta go through the next level and the next level and the next. And it wasn't ignored, it was just not accepted, so. I mean, that's the option. So, again, is there a consensus? And I didn't see that there was one, so,
I'm the only one. I'll stand by the
okay.
Constitution, freedom.
Is there any other questions on the proposed amendments? Somebody's BlackBerry?
No?
I hope that's what that was. All right, I don't
And
see.
the idea of deciding the dates on when the actual deliberative is going to be is completely up to the council, right?
Yep.
They decide that.
Yep,
And
Based
they
on state
basically
law.
decide the budget calendar anyway. I mean, Dave puts a proposed calendar in front of the council, and the council says yes or no to it.
my feeling was, as we were talking, throughout the process here, that we were gonna try to keep the balloting on the same day that the school district had their balloting too. Is that?
And that is what this does.
That's in here. Yeah,
The only
second
the only
Tuesday in
difference
March.
is there was a suggestion that we have the deliberative session at the same time, which I think would introduce chaos myself. I can see how in one context it might be more efficient, but the governments are so different, missions are so different. I think a deliberative session encompassing both, you'd have to have, I just can't think of all that, you'd have more people sitting up in front of the meeting on boards and committees than you would actually attending, I think, in some cases, but.
Brian, can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Dave, does the budget calendar follow the same schedule as the school? Like, could there be a year that there's a budgetary town meeting for the town, and then that same week there's one for the school?
Currently, no, because our budgetary town meeting happens after the second Tuesday in March under our current system,
Right,
whereby with the school district, they have the deliberative session sometimes in February.
right.
There could be a potential for to have deliberative session for both level units of government at the same time at different locations, although that would not happen. I mean, it's just,
I just think it would be a
Could be in
very
the same
full
week.
week, yeah.
I mean, it clearly could be in the same week. or
well, it's
within
gonna be in the same week, absolutely.
It's definitely
Yeah,
good.
So-
because as you recall, the state law, which we've mirrored the state law, it says you've got to have it after the last Monday of the month in January, between those two Saturdays, inclusive of those Saturdays. So somewhere, you're gonna have two meetings.
In that, there will be two deliberative sessions in one 7-day period.
Which, we have two meetings now, different times.
Suggesting.
Town meeting and deliberative session, different times, 10-minute days, 15 days from each other, something like that.
Yeah, about a month,
Yeah.
apart, yeah.
Different answer,
Yeah.
different kind of question. So Dave, I don't think you're
Sorry.
hearing the whole question. The Charter Commission, under this language, is not responsible for setting the date of the deliberative session.
That's correct.
That's by law.
Now, you
The-
can
the question
establish a
is-
date in the charter.
That was gonna be the question. We could, should we elect here to recommend language in the charter that sets a date that falls between these two? We could say the Tuesday following the first Saturday of, and that would be falling within these dates, and we are empowered to do that. Or we're empowered to put the language in here the way it is and leave it up to the council to determine.
Okay. And the other thing is there a reason why no one ever mentions a Sunday? Is there a rule or a law that says you can't have a deliberative on a Sunday?
I don't
The
think,
Is-
Church is on
I
Saturday,
don't think
too.
there's a law which prohibits a public body from meeting on Sundays.
I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, it
Not-
says
not
it
that I'm
shall be
aware of,
held
anyway.
between the first and second Saturday. So the first Saturday is followed by a Sunday. It could be that
I
Sunday.
just, I
Yeah, there's nothing that prohibits.
didn't
There's no
know
prohibit.
if there was some like crazy, you know, Mass has those blue laws, certain things
that's
you can and
Mass.
cannot do.
Maybe a law out there, but I'm not familiar
I
with
don't
it.
I don't either, I don't
I
know.
just thought I'd throw it out
You've been
there.
around.
Sunday seems to be a less.
No, I don't believe there is.
sports activity
So-
day.
So this is the proposed draft language.
Okay.
This is what would be, if we don't change it between now and the 26th, this is what would be in our report as it stands, okay? Along with whatever other information we decide to put into the report.
We're not gonna vote on this tonight anyways. We'll get a chance to eat this up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the actuality is that this is, say we don't propose any changes, this goes into the report, it's the draft. My read on the purpose of the time period between the draft and the final is to allow for the Secretary of State, Attorney General review, and they may have proposed technical types of changes that we would then come back and adjust.
But I would suggest that you not wait till the 26th to adopt your recommendation. You should adopt your recommendation at some point before that, and then send it up to town council. I mean, he's looked at this, but if you make any changes, you want to get those to town council, because if he has questions about it,
Right.
you want to make those adjustments before the 26th of August.
So, in order to do that, we need to discuss the date of a meeting
What, are we meeting again?
in order to accommodate making any additional changes. Now, we have to have the report in by the 26th. We had previously looked at scheduling a meeting on the 23rd. We have not formally done so because of space availability for that night, was one reason. We would not be using this room. This room is a council meeting that night. So we would either be using the school district meeting room next door, or the library, or some other public venue. But we have kept, and we have previously indicated that we can meet on other nights of the week.
What about the 16th?
The 16th is currently open.
Yeah, well,
That's just a week. So.
No, I do, just to clarify something, the draft report that we're putting together does include the minority report as well?
Yes.
Okay, so we'd have to have both ready, because will we be able to get assistance in regards to having it formalized and typed and copies made and all that?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so what I had already started working on independently was full outline, in which I would then take this language, incorporate it in as what we would discuss at our next meeting. It would be the full outline of the majority report for us to discuss. Include such things as it's introduction. It's the stuff that we've seen. It's kind of boilerplate. It's actually lifted directly from one of the initial letters from the town's attorney specifying how we came to be. Voters established us on, March 2010, that kind of stuff. The meetings that we've had, we've met in accordance with the RSA, requiring us to have a public hearing. We've had two, blah. It's all that kind of boilerplate introductory type of information, then followed by these pieces so that they can technically review exactly what was changed, what was deleted, what was added, and then so they would have the full text of the actual change. And then beyond that, if we want to include minutes to meetings or any other artifacts or exhibits as part of the report, we can do that. Including letters of the town's attorney, we can enclose those. We can do pretty much anything we want to do with this report. So I've looked at those types of things as simple things to include because they're artifacts that we already have. We can put them in here. And then it's putting a table of contents on the whole thing, and
They're all public anyway right now. We've made everything
Yep.
public, so.
and this makes it a consolidated public report instead of people having to go fish for
Yeah,
different pieces. Everything would be in one.
yeah,
Handy reference.
I concur. And I haven't talked to my fellow counselors in the minority, but I do not intend, and I don't think they do either, to duplicate a lot of what is already, you're going to put in there. It'll be
Right.
just our opinion based on everything that has been
Yeah.
brought forward. Don't need to duplicate all that again.
So,
But I would like to have some idea what that format is so that I can try and make sure that our minority report will blend in to
yeah, so
yours.
I'd like to do that with you, work that as
Sure.
well, and then what that would be, I envision this being one document, Dave. Does it have to be two?
I don't think it does.
So I would look at this being a document titled basically Report of the Charter Commission of the Town of Londonderry, boom. And then having an upfront section, which is like section A, and the introductory stuff, then section B, which is the majority report, section C, which is the minority report.
Yep.
And then the other stuff is all appendices,
Right,
right? Minutes, exhibits, letters, et cetera, blah, 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 blah.
Right,
Stack
'cause I
them all
think-
up and
because, especially
we got the
with
tech
that,
writer, we got the tech writer background. Mark.
Yes, we
That
do.
would be fun with stuff.
Specifically because of that, with the appendices would make a lot more sense so that not only can the majority reference it in their discussion or their
Yep.
comments, but the minority can reference the same set of documents.
So if we could get back together on the 16th, review as full of a draft as can be provided on that date, I'll get it out to everybody. It's a lot for me to do, but I'll try to get it out. And Dave, I might need a little bit of help from you on a couple of things, just to provide, like this you gave us in a PDF. The word master of this might be better.
I'll send it over tonight.
Okay. So certain things like that, then we can have it all in one thing, and I'll work to get it out to everybody this weekend in time so that they at least have part of the weekend and Monday to review. We could have another meeting on the 16th and basically at that meeting be done. And if we're not done, we'd have to meet again between then and the 23rd, or the 26th, in order to finalize anything we still have open. Dave, the 16th would, if there is any suggested change that the majority of the Charter Commission would like to entertain, that would give us time between the 16th and it would give us that week for any reviews by Bart. So, does that sound good?
Once it's reviewed by Bart and it's reviewed by the state, I mean, if they come back and they say that, you know, this or that is incorrect, or you have to change this or that, I mean, that's not up to us, that's up to town council at that point? Or-
No, it's all up to us.
Oh, okay.
The council has no role. So we would get back a letter from, you know, for instance, Attorney General's office saying you need to make the following technical corrections, A, B, C. We'd sit down and work those out with, you know, we'd ask Dave to work with the town attorney to give us the language that makes those technical corrections. We'd get back together, vote on it, and then we'd be done. There's no rule that says we can't finish early.
No, I was just, you said, you know, this might be our last meeting next Monday, and I was just wondering what would happen if, you know,
Yeah, and
they came back
I think
and
we
said-
need to, I think we would need to schedule a meeting when we get any comments back, so that we can address the fact even that there are no comments. I think it would be good to have a public meeting of the commission to address that we provided a report, here's the draft, and I think we have to vote to make it the final. I would assume that that would be the correct. So we have, even if we finish on the 16th, we have at least one more meeting after the 26th of August.
I know you had a timeline somewhere in here, but how long does it usually take for the state to go through these?
I don't have the statute in front of me, but there is a timeline where if you don't hear back from the state, they consider it to be approved.
Oh, okay.
Historically, you're more apt to not hear back from them, although I think they're a little sensitized to the situation now, so I suspect they will respond to this. So I think it's a 30-day, I don't have the statute with me, but I think it's a 30 days, so. Anyway, it's in plenty of time to get something on the ballot for March.
Right.
Our final report goes to, our final report is issued on the 26th of October, and is sent to the Attorney General's office on November 5th, by November 5th. Nothing says it can't go early. If we're done, it's best to just get it off the books. Marty?
The appendix for reference, I think that's something we need to get done sooner than later so that people can start referencing it if they're in their writings, but also to make sure that we all have access to the same things, or we have copies. I mean,
Yep.
I'm not sure that I have everything, I'm not sure that I don't, but I'd just like to know every letter that we receive from
So
our
the-
attorneys, from the input we receive from state, Secretary of State, anything we received in writing, plus our minutes, to make
Yep.
sure that we have that, and we could go ahead and start referencing those, you can start identifying those.
Okay.
Okay, we put together some type of a list, and if we need copies, David, you can get them for us, I'm sure. Yeah.
So the one letter that I hadn't sent out to everybody was this one that I read, and I'll send everybody a copy of that afterwards. My plan is that the appendices being the minutes and these types of letters,
Right.
that I would stack them all in date order and number them according to the date order.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's, we had a letter that was read into the record.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Did you get copies of that?
that was included in the
It
notes.
was in the
And
minutes.
as well as the one that
Right, it's
Dottie
in the
Glover did.
10-page.
So those types of things too, those would be included as well.
Because, I mean, I have draft like this, but I don't
Right.
have the clean printed version that will.
The final,
Yeah.
so all of those are available, we'll get those and stack those up, so it won't be drafts, it'll be the finals,
Right.
adopted minutes. And that's the way they'll be labeled in a table of contents, adopted minutes of the meeting of 7/26/2010.
Great.
Adopted minutes, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So I'll get that together. I was already working it because I knew that somebody's gonna have to do it, might as well be me. And I'll run it by Dave, see if there's anything. I'll run it by Lara to make sure that it's all consistent with the minutes and that we didn't miss anything. And if we miss something from that review, then we'll chase that.
Yeah, and included, there was some, I mean, I know we have them, but I think you need to also include some handouts that were given to us, like from the Secretary of State, that.
The DRA
Yeah,
handout.
the
Yeah,
green
yeah,
sheet.
exactly, yeah.
Right here.
That needs to be
The
identified
orange
as well.
sheet, the green sheet.
Right, right, exactly.
I just have a quick comment.
Yeah, the orange sheet was-
For getting this all together.
You're welcome.
That was quick, and I wasn't expecting it all to be done tonight, so thank you.
You're not used to working with Dave, are you?
I guess not.
Dave-
That
Dave
came
likes
as a
to
big
just
surprise
get-
to me
Dave
that
likes
it was all
things
written
just
up and
off his
ready.
plate.
You probably had it done that night after you left the meeting.
Got that ball of the net. It's yours now.
Get it back to the other, get it over the net.
Dave, you know, the school side did make me stronger and got me to read more, because they actually, on the school side charter, they have all the references on different areas that made it easy for somebody like me. That's how I learned about the charters and the laws.
Look at it, actually, out of the 5 pages, they have 3 references to RSA
Well,
4013.
I'm looking at it right now, yeah, there's a lot more. RSA 40:13, RSA 32:13.
No, I'm referring to RSA 4013. There's 3 references to that. The rest of them deal with 49D, 197, 32.
Yeah, they go into RSA, but what I'm trying to say is, for somebody who's a little slower than others, it made it easy, instead of me bothering the superintendent or somebody from the school, which they got schools to run, to look it up and find out for myself.
Right.
Please OCR scan them.
Yeah.
Website. Oh, because I printed it off before we even got that.
Those two?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, if you have them. then
You can just print them off of the state's website,
Can you do that?
those two documents.
Can you make them Word documents?
Can I make them Word? I don't know if I can make them, I can
think
try.
If you can, if it's on the state's website, you can copy all.
Yeah,
Just
Sometimes,
paste it
it
into a
depends
Word
if it's
document.
embedded. If the fonts are embedded, you can't. It's hard to,
We'll figure that out.
yeah.
well, you always have the option.
Late for dinner.
So, remaining agenda items.
Big old black phone.
Dave, again, thank you for your time and effort, your
Welcome.
patience.
I'll send these over to you in Word as soon as I get
Okay,
upstairs.
you've made this as painless as possible.
Questions, let us know. We'll get them up to Bart so he can get your work wrapped up.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
So, the only other
Thanks, Dave.
remaining item of business for the commission tonight was adoption of the minutes from 7/26.
Motion to adopt.
Second,
Hey, you guys are, can't even open my mouth.
10 pages.
Any questions?
Figure I might as well say something
Any
today.
discussion on the minutes?
I think she did an awesome job.
Yeah,
for about
fabulous.
10 pages. Yeah.
Well, a couple of them were just copying the letters. It's not all my word. But thank you.
All right, all those in favor of adopting the minutes of 7/26 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0, minutes are adopted. Any other business?
Are you scheduling the room, or is Dave going to schedule this?
Schedule it
for-
with Margot.
And it'll be in this room?
If this room is available, right now on the calendar, it is available. Any
So
other
the next
business?
meeting is the 16th.
16th, next Monday. All right,
April's last meeting,
Yeah,
for us anyway.
Can we like have a cake or something for
Why?
April?
doesn't love us anymore.
She's leaving.
April, we're not feeling the love.
Everybody say goodbye to April.
Bye, April.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion's been
Second.
made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Nice.